After years of silence, my parents finally invited me home, only to ambush me with an intervention. My mother crossed her arms and said, "We're here to save you from your bad choices." My father smirked, "You have two options, obey us, or be cut off forever." I took a deep breath and smiled. "Actually, I have a third option," I said. The moment I pulled out my phone and pressed play, their faces went pale. After years of silence, my parents finally reached out to me. Their message was simple: come home. We need to talk. It had been nearly a decade since I'd left our small town of Springfield, Massachusetts, to build a life in Chicago. The distance wasn't just geographical, it was emotional. Our relationship had deteriorated over the years, filled with misunderstandings and unspoken grievances. So, when I received their invitation, I was both surprised and apprehensive. I arrived at my childhood home on a crisp autumn afternoon. The house looked the same. White picket fence, neatly trimmed lawn, and my mother's prized rose bushes lining the walkway. But as I stepped onto the porch, a sense of unease settled over me. The door creaked open before I could knock, revealing my mother standing there with a tight-lipped smile. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. I entered the living room to find my father seated in his favorite armchair, my younger sister on the couch, and, to my surprise, our family pastor, Reverend James, standing by the fireplace. The atmosphere was heavy, the air thick with unspoken words. My mother crossed her arms and fixed me with a stern gaze. "We're here to save you from your bad choices," she began. My father leaned forward, his expression hard. "You have two options: obey us and correct your path, or be cut off from this family forever." I felt a familiar pang of frustration. This was typical of them, always presenting ultimatums, never seeking to understand. But this time, I was prepared. Taking a deep breath, I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "Actually," I said calmly, "I have a third option." I tapped the screen, and an audio recording filled the room. It was a conversation from a year ago between my parents and my ex-fiancé, Mark. They were discussing how to manipulate me into leaving Chicago and returning to Springfield. Mark had agreed to break off our engagement as part of their plan. As the recording played, I watched the color drain from my mother's face. My father's jaw tightened, and he shifted uncomfortably. My sister's eyes widened in shock, and Reverend James looked down, clearly uncomfortable. When the recording ended, I looked at each of them. "I know about your plans," I said, my voice steady. "I know how you try to control my life. And I know the lengths you went to manipulate me." My mother opened her mouth, then closed it, at a loss for words. My father stood up abruptly. "You ungrateful child," he spat. "After all we've done for you." I met his gaze, unflinching. "All you've done is try to control me," I replied. "But I'm done being controlled." I turned to leave, feeling a sense of liberation. As I reached the door, my sister's voice stopped me. "Wait," she said, her voice trembling. I paused, looking back at her. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I knew about their plans, but I didn't know how to stop them. I nodded, appreciating her honesty. "It's time for all of us to break free from their control," I said softly. With that, I stepped out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the weight of manipulation and control. I returned to Chicago, determined to live my life on my own terms. A week after I returned to Chicago, things started to feel off. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Uptown, nothing fancy, just quiet and mine. The kind of peace you work hard to get. But right after I got back from Springfield, weird stuff started happening. First, I noticed my mailbox was open one morning. Not broken, just open, like someone had already checked it. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I forgot to close it the night before. Then, 2 days later, I got an envelope slipped under my door. No name on the front, no return address. Inside were printed screenshots, old social media posts from my private Instagram. Stuff I had deleted years ago. Stuff only someone very close to me would have saved. At first, I thought it had to be Mark. I hadn't spoken to him since everything went down. He ghosted me the second I confronted him about the audio. But he wasn't stupid. He wouldn't do something this bold, would he? I called my sister. She picked up after the second ring, whispering like she didn't want anyone to hear her. "They know you played the audio," she said before I could even say hello. "What do you mean they know?" "They were in the room." "No," she said, her voice shaking. "They didn't know you had recorded other things. Dad found out you recorded his phone call with Mark from earlier this year." I felt my stomach drop. That phone call had been the first piece of the puzzle. I hadn't meant to record it. I was testing a new voice memo app and forgot to turn it off after a meeting. When Dad called, it caught everything. Him asking Mark how soon he could wrap things up with me, how much money he'd need to relocate closer to Springfield to help steer me right. It was sickening to listen to, but I had saved it, along with the other audio I played back at the house. And now they knew. How? I asked. How could they know about that call? There was silence on the line. Then my sister said, "I think someone got into your cloud." I froze. Everything was stored there. My backups, the audio, screenshots, even the diary notes I'd written in case I ever needed to remind myself it wasn't all in my head. Who? I asked, though I already had a guess. My sister's voice was so low I almost couldn't hear her. Reverend James has a cousin in tech. I overheard Mom asking him for digital help. She didn't say more, but it didn't sound good. I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I moved everything to an encrypted drive, wiped my cloud, and called a friend who worked in cybersecurity. I didn't care if I sounded paranoid. I knew what my family was capable of. They weren't loud with their control. They were quiet, precise, and practiced. But the worst was still coming. 2 weeks later, I was served a formal notice. My parents were attempting to declare me mentally unfit in court. The paperwork claimed erratic behavior, delusional claims of betrayal, and emotional instability. They attached old therapy records, stuff they shouldn't even have had access to, and twisted my sessions into ammunition. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the papers, shaking. I had no idea how they'd gotten those records. Until I remembered something horrible. My mom used to work at the same clinic I went to back in high school. She still knew people there. They were trying to destroy me legally. Make it look like I was unstable so they could control everything. My job, my finances, even where I lived. I called my friend Sam, an attorney, and read every word of the petition aloud. She was silent for a long time before she said, "This isn't just family drama anymore. This is a coordinated attempt to strip you of autonomy. We need to respond fast." It was war now. A quiet, suffocating war that didn't happen with fists but with documents, whispers, and secrets. I knew then this wasn't about love or concern. It was about control. About never forgiving me for building a life they couldn't influence. And I still hadn't revealed everything I had. There was one more recording. One that could burn it all down. And maybe it was time to use it. I didn't sleep the night I got served. I just sat there, staring at the petition. The signatures. The cold, emotionless language. I read it over and over until the words blurred. Then I started thinking about what they were really trying to do. It wasn't just about shaming me back home. It was about taking everything. My independence, my name, my future. The mental unfit angle? That was only step one. 2 days later, Sam helped me file an emergency response. She also helped me contact a therapist who could evaluate me independently. Someone with credentials even my mother's church friends couldn't challenge. I took the train downtown for the evaluation. The therapist was kind, calm, and didn't rush. After 2 long sessions, she cleared me. Wrote a full report that said I was of sound mind, articulate, and emotionally aware. I felt relief, but also this underlying dread. Because I knew it wouldn't stop them. And I was right. Later that week, I found out my work email had been hacked. The IT guy called me on a Friday. "Hey, did you authorize someone from Springfield to access your email?" I hadn't. Of course not. Someone had tried to send an anonymous tip to HR using my email, claiming I'd been using drugs at work. That's when I realized something even darker. This wasn't just about pulling me back to Springfield anymore. This was about ruining me completely, so I'd have no choice but to crawl back. They were trying to strip away every piece of stability I had left, so that when I fell, the only place I could fall to was them. That's when I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. When I was 16, I walked in on a conversation my parents were having with Reverend James. They didn't notice me standing by the basement stairs. They were talking about someone, Cynthia, who'd gotten out of control. I heard phrases like commitment papers and prayer discipline. Back then, I didn't understand what they meant. But now it made a horrible kind of sense. Cynthia was my cousin. She'd been wild and outspoken, moved to New York for art school, and cut ties with the church. Then one day, she was just back, living in the basement apartment of her parents' house. Quiet, different. I tried to reach her once after that. She didn't even recognize me. And now I couldn't stop wondering. Was this what they had planned for me, too? Was this how they'd done it before? I told Sam everything. She didn't blink. We'll need to dig, she said. You're not there first. That night, I dug through old journals, emails, saved voicemails. I built a timeline. I listed every weird thing I'd brushed off. I wrote down names, friends who stopped talking to me, past relationships that ended too suddenly. And then I found something else. It was a video, just under 5 minutes, taken in 2016, right before I left Springfield. I had forgotten I even recorded it. It was from a family prayer night in our living room. Everyone was there. My parents, Reverend James, a few church elders. We were sitting in a circle, and someone, probably my sister, was holding my phone and recording for family memories. But in the last minute of the video, after the prayer ended, my father said something that stopped me cold. If she doesn't bend, she'll break. But she'll break in our house, not out in the world. Everyone nodded. It was said with such calm, like it was already decided. I watched that video 5 times. Then I backed it up twice. Once on an encrypted drive. Once with Sam. I was done waiting. Done reacting. I was going to expose everything. But the next twist? It wasn't from them. It was from Mark. He showed up at my door. At first, I didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight. Looked tired. Worn down. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, I need to tell you something. I didn't know how far they were going to go. But now, they've turned on me too. I didn't let him in. I made him talk from the hallway. He told me my father had paid him. Not just once. Multiple times. When I broke things off, he said, I thought I was helping you. They made it sound like you were spiraling. Like you needed someone to push you back to reality. I laughed. It was bitter and dry. And you believe them? He didn't answer. Just held out a flash drive. It's all there, he said. Bank transfers. Messages. I recorded the last call I had with your dad. He said if I didn't stay quiet, he'd take care of me too. I took the drive. Closed the door without another word. Now I had everything I needed. But I also knew something for sure. This wasn't just a family problem anymore. This was a network. People working quietly. Silencing. Controlling. Covering tracks. And I was about to blow it wide open. It all came to a head on a gray Thursday morning. Court was scheduled for 9:30 a.m. downtown. The room was quiet but buzzing with tension. I sat with Sam at the front bench, flash drive in hand. My parents walked in looking polished and smug. My father gave me a smirk that screamed, You've already lost. My mother avoided my eyes, but her lips were tight like she had rehearsed everything she was about to say. Reverend James sat behind them, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like he was already judging me guilty. The judge entered. Everyone stood. This was real now. They started by presenting their case, cold, clinical, and strategic. My emotional instability. My irrational behaviors. They even referenced my move to Chicago as a sudden separation from family support. It was like watching strangers talk about a version of me that never existed. Then it was our turn. Sam stood and started methodically tearing their claims apart. She presented my recent evaluation, played the therapist's summary aloud in court, introduced the forged HR email evidence. Then she paused and nodded to me. I stood up, knees stiff. My voice was calm but clear. I have evidence of manipulation, coercion, and psychological abuse, I said, from people who claim to love me. And then I played the audio recordings. All of them. The 2016 video. The basement conversation about my cousin. The phone call with my father and Mark. The clip where my dad says, she'll break in our house. The courtroom went still. My mother's face crumbled. My father shot to his feet, shouting, This is taken out of context. You're twisting everything. The judge banged his gavel. Sit down, sir. Then I played Mark's last recording, the one from just a week ago. His voice on the call, shaking as he told my father he was done, and my father replying, Then we'll make you regret getting involved. And just like that, the whole story cracked wide open. The judge called a recess. My father stormed out first, jaw clenched, pushing past reporters who had caught wind of the case. My mother sat still, shaking, eyes wet. She whispered something I couldn't hear. Reverend James stood up, tried to leave quietly, but a lawyer from the state was already waiting to talk to him. He wouldn't be leaving as quietly as he hoped. Sam turned to me. We did it. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, like I just dragged my entire past into the light and found out it wasn't even real. My sister showed up outside the courthouse. She hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. I'm sorry, she said again, for what felt like the 10th time. It's not your fault, I whispered. But I let them do it, she said. All of it. I just watched. I pulled back. So did I. For years. That night, I went home and sat alone. No noise. No phone. Just silence. They tried to destroy me because they couldn't control me. But now their lies were public. Their masks were off. Over the next few weeks, the fallout came fast. My dad was asked to step down from several community boards. My mom lost her leadership position in the church's women's ministry. People whispered. Some defended them. Others stepped away quietly. My cousin Cynthia contacted me through a burner email. She'd seen the case in the news. She was living in Denver now, rebuilding her life. She remembered everything they did, and she thanked me for speaking up. Mark disappeared again. I didn't need closure from him. He had made his choices. The judge dismissed their petition fully. He even issued a warning about weaponizing mental health in court proceedings. I wasn't mentally unfit. I was free. But freedom came with grief. I didn't just lose parents. I lost the illusion of love, the image of family I used to cling to. It hurt in ways I still don't have words for. Now, months later, I'm trying to rebuild. Therapy helps. So does work. So does distance. Sometimes I see a post from someone back home, pretending like everything's normal, like none of it happened. But I don't reply. I don't go back. I don't need to, because I learned something the hard way. Some people don't love you. They love the version of you they can control. And when that version disappears, so does their love. But I'm still here, still standing. I don't know what comes next. I'm not sure I even believe in clean, happy endings anymore. But I believe in truth. And that's enough. For now.